guys? Welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. This other guy sounds like he's in his late 40s, early 50s, and is truly, of all the videos I've done in the last 4 years, is probably the strongest guy I've ever heard. This is a guy who has gone through so much tragedy in his life and yet kept on going. I kid you not, and I'm not going to get into the details too much. I don't want to reveal too much. But let's just say he really, really suffered. And he's still here, kicking, and he's doing well. And this whole theme of this story is involving primarily grandparents' rights. A law that is obviously big in many different states, where if a spouse passes away and the grandparents take a role raising the kids and living in the house raising the kids, at some point they have a right to the kids. And in this situation, his parents take full advantage of it, putting this guy in an absolute horrible situation. And I'll be very going to go over here, guys, like I said, to both for two reasons. One, to teach everybody about the whole grandparents' rights type of law. And that way then you are aware of this for all you guys that are married and have kids in case tragedy occurs. And two, to show you a story of a guy who's gone through just one tragedy after another and has stayed strong for his family and has gotten through it. And now fast forward in time and he is happy, doing well, and it's truly an inspiration, and that's why I'm doing it. It's a longer story, but I thought it was definitely worth your time because this is something that this is a men's channel, and I appreciate the 4% of women that watch me that are supportive and have guys' backs, because not all gals are here watching the videos to gain secret info to screw guys. There are a lot of women here that have written me emails or Instagram messages thanking me for my work because they have guys' backs. And they do what they can to show that and help guys. But anyhow, this is to help guys out there. These stories really help guys that are struggling. I know this because I have guys write me all the time. When they hear that other guys have been going through hell, all different types of hell, it really, and survived and lived to see another day, it really helps them get through the day. Because life is going to have problems and tragedies. And it's really helpful to know that guys have been through it and can make it, and it will give you the strength to do that. And that's why I do a lot of these. I do all the videos to help guys, but let's be honest, a lot are just entertainment with learning along the way. But stories like this really is to show guys you can get through the worst of times, but and not to give up, and people care and all that. So this is a really good one, and you're going to see more as I get into this, because I don't want to reveal too much because I want you to learn real time what this guy goes through and what he endures. He says, Dear SSM, as a fellow Gen Xer who's just a few years older than you, I want to thank you for the work you've done in sharing the myriad of stories and insights regarding the state of relationships in today's world. I've been following your channel for nearly 4 years now and have contemplated sharing my story as a warning to others, but always held back. Well, sir, I really appreciate you writing in. I appreciate you following me for 4 years. I mean, I've been on for a little more than 4 years, so you're one of the early guys that had my back. And because of you and all the other guys, especially early on, I'm here. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate everybody, whether you signed up, subscribed yesterday or 4 years ago, but especially the early guys. I originally tried sending this a couple of years ago when I was listening to your stories while hammering through some paperwork at home. And finally decided to compose my story when you mentioned grandparents' rights while relaying the story about this poly chick whose mother bailed on paying for the wedding and threatened to sue the daughter under grandparents' rights. I listened tonight to the story about the father who was like Job and sent through hell, and I wanted to respond and see if my story might be appropriate because I do disagree with your take and wanted to share what the hell I went through years ago and how I couldn't start the healing until I found some forgiveness in my heart. Well, this is quite the story. Let me tell you guys. Oh, when he said Job. Okay, it took me a sec. I forgot Job. I'm thinking Job from the Bible. You guys know the story about Job in the Bible, who the devil was putting through all this absolute hell, no pun intended, and Job still stayed loyal and loving to God, and finally in the end, after all this, he still, no matter everything the devil put him through, God, he was loyal and loving to God, and then eventually that little dispute ended, and God rewarded him with, I think, 2 or 3 times the amount of wonderful things in his life. But anyhow, that's what he's referring to. It's Sunday, I can talk about biblical things. I think I got it right, and you religious guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I spent 15 years of my life from childhood to 15 years old every Sunday, Sunday school, church, then Bible school, and all these other things that I was involved with. Thanks, Mom. Anyhow, I went through a brutal lawsuit in family court years ago, which was successfully executed against me, and grandparents' rights was the reason. I too want to warn all guys out there how critical it is to always know the risks so they aren't torched in court the way I was. I will keep this as short as possible and to the point, but by the way, I know there will be smacks along the way. I accept them all. As I tell my kids, I earned all the smacks I ever got. For the sake of brevity, I will give you and your subscribers the Reader's Digest version of the story. Yeah, this guy definitely does things that I disagree with. He gives us smacks. But fortunately, even though just the never-ending problems this guy's had happen to him, like Job in the Bible, this guy is strong. This guy has endured for his kids and family and all that, and I have great respect. Like I mentioned in the beginning here. And this guy's doing well now. He says, I grew up in a home with my mom and dad, married, and nearly our entire family had strong marriages. This included my parents, my grandparents, and nearly all my aunts and uncles. We were Catholic, and as a youth, my parents didn't let us miss Mass, and I always had a very strong relationship with my mother and father. Okay, notice the very strong relationship with mom and dad part here. And you're like me. From birth to 15 years old, there wasn't a Sunday that I missed unless something was seriously going on. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings. My father was in highly technical corporate sales my whole life, and my mother stayed at home until we were in high school. Around 2000, I began dating my late wife, Jenny. She was a good woman and was finishing her nursing degree, and I was already out working in the real world in corporate sales. I know what you're all going to say about the nurses, but this guy seems that he had a rare exception with her. I truly believe that's the case and hope that's the case. I'm in a totally different field compared to what my father did, but I love it. It's provided for us for nearly 25 years, and I can't imagine being in an office job. Jenny and I dated for a few years and then got married. Since my career is in corporate sales, I travel overnight on a weekly basis. Jenny and I decided early on that we would live below our means so she could be a stay-at-home mom, as we both felt that was the best thing to do for our kids. Great. Good you're both seeing eye to eye with the spending and the finances. And you always want to live below your means, guys, because if you live below your means, you have extra money left over every month that you can invest in some asset that you're comfortable with. Remember, guys, invest what you're comfortable with in a way that you're comfortable with. And by the way, this is entertainment. This is not me giving you advice telling you what to do financially. Got to cover my ass here, but seek out a professional, but you get my point. Live beneath your means and always have something left over every month, like a business having extra profits. Anyway, the first real challenge came early in our marriage when we lost our first son at birth. Oh my God. I'm sorry, man. I can't imagine what that's like. This was a real blow to me personally and spiritually. I went through a long personal journey on this, and in the end, I found that re-embracing my faith really was the best help for getting over the grief of losing and bearing a child. I can't begin to imagine that pain. I know you're not a father and thus cannot really relate to this, but for any parent, father or mother, this is one of the most gut-wrenching situations to endure. It's not natural, and I felt immensely guilty for being alive and seeing my infant son in a tiny coffin. I'm sorry, man. I am not a parent, and so I don't know what that's like, but I've lost loved ones, and believe me, I can understand that, and I have empathy, believe me. I pray for any parent who had to endure this. I know that the loss devastated Jenny and our parents as well. Jenny and I were blessed a few years later with 2 healthy sons. Congratulations, Dad. Right after my youngest turned 1 year old, my wife, who really battled with her weight her whole life, was on the way to the gym and was involved in an automobile accident. As if you haven't already suffered enough with the loss of your first child at birth. Jenny's injuries were severe and she passed away about 30 hours later. Bro, I'm so sorry. You lost your child, then you lost your wife, your boys lost their mama. You can see the comparison to Job in the Bible here. Jenny loved helping people and was an organ donor. She was able to help 7 strangers with her gift of selflessly offering her organs, etc., that she could no longer use. Jenny was not perfect, but she was truly a good woman. Coincidentally, the 15th anniversary of Jenny's death will be this Easter Sunday. This was obviously written a while ago, guys. At the time of her death, I was left with a 1-year-old and 3-year-old and no clue how I was going to move on. So think about this, guys. Let's take this in perspective. He lost his son, and not long years later, he loses his wife, and now he has to stay strong for his boys. You can see how this guy would not want to ever get out of bed in the morning and just feel constantly sick. You know, many of us have been there. But this guy found the strength to get up every morning, take care of a 1-year-old and 3-year-old, go to work, take care of things. My parents were very well off, and my mother offered to come stay with me to help with the boys. I made a room for her, and in my grief and fog, allowed her to take care of the boys. I was back at work full-time within 2 weeks of burying my wife because I really didn't know what else to do. I think the job and having to do what you had to do, you needed it to get out of the house and keep on trucking. But it sounds like you didn't have a chance to really properly grieve, which it can be a major problem. You got to grieve, guys. You know, there's no shame in crying and letting it loose, you know, privately if you have to, you know, but you got to grieve or you can never truly heal. A few weeks turned into an excess of 16 months. My dad would come up and visit a lot as their home was about 600 miles away from where I was living. I threw myself into work and probably traveled more than I ever had and worked a lot. I felt guilty about this quite a bit. FYI, here is where I will earn a lot of smacks. I was worried about my boys growing up without a mother, and I was extremely blue-pilled at the time. The only real RP moment I had experienced was seeing how basically no one really cared about me after Jenny died. Yeah, imagine that. I was left to deal with the loss on my own. I was taking my then 4-year-old to a program for youth dealing with loss, and there was an adult session which I attended. It was a little helpful. The sad fact was the world simply does not care at all about what men go through. At about 8 months after my wife passed, I began dating online. It was a site for people of similar faith and not the normal hookup sites. Plus, at the time, it was late 2009. Internet dating wasn't quite like it is today. Long story short, I went out with a few different women, but really clicked with, let's call her Mary, who was older than me by 6 years, divorced, and a mother of 4 kids, and also a nurse. Smack! Older, divorced, 4 kids, and a nurse. I know what you're all thinking. Holy fucking shit. Well, guess what, guys? Our guy here, in spite of it, even though he's been going through absolute hell, the tragedy in his life, turns out this woman he dates, and you're going to see where this goes, turns out to be an exception. And given how he tells the story, I actually believe that. Thank the Lord. But anyhow, yes. He goes, yes, I know, you can all smack me. Am I out of my damn mind? And he says, yes, I am pretty sure I am. And I know I was not the smartest back then. Well, sir, if anything, you were going through absolute hell. Mary and I dated for a couple of years, and I will say this, she is the only person who actually helped me grieve. I won't go into the details, but I've never even shed a tear at my wife's death, and even got up to talk at the funeral with no emotional breakdown. I'm pretty sure it isn't healthy, and Mary was intent on pushing me to grieve and find the help that I needed. Well, that's great. I don't think it meant bawl your eyes out in front of her, but to go through the process and get help. Because I'm not kidding, you gotta grieve, guys. My mother was always pleasant with her, and I can't think of any real arguments they ever had while we were dating. Okay, let's remember, I'm going to read that again. My mother was always pleasant with her, and I can't think of any real arguments they had while ever dating. Okay, we will remember this part for what's coming up in this story about the whole grandparents' rights lawsuits and shit like that. Now listen to this. After dating for about 2 years, wait for it, we got engaged. I know, smack. Yeah, smack. Well, you were going through hell. Unfortunately, in spite of all those different things, I think she was definitely the exception compared to what could have been. Sorry to give spoilers, but I had to say it, so you guys don't leave and listen to this guy's story. Not long after our engagement is when I decided to sell my house and build a new larger home for Mary and all 6 of the kids. Mary ended up selling her house to my parents as they wanted an investment property and offered a fair price for her home. About a week after the house was sold is when I was hit with a constable showing up at my new house one afternoon to serve me papers that I was being sued by my mother and father, citing grandparents' rights. Are you effing kidding me? Your parents are suing you for grandparents' rights? Unless there was something going on they saw in your now new wife that was going on and you weren't aware of, and it's been a big sham all along. What the hell is going on? And obviously that's not the case, as you're going to see. What the hell is that all about? Are you kidding me? Has mom and dad gone super attached to the boys? You know, after everything you've been through, they're going to put you through this? In the state we lived in, Pennsylvania, if a parent dies and then a grandparent lives under the same roof of the grandchildren for more than 6 months and acts as a parent in locum, then they have the exact same rights to the children as a divorced spouse. You hear that, guys? Right there, grandparents' rights. Now, that's Pennsylvania. I spent a big chunk of my life living in Pennsylvania, so I had no idea about that. Learn something every day. And I'm sure there's grandparents' rights similar in different states, so remember that, guys. This is a very real and enforceable law. All men should know if they have this sword of Damocles also hanging over their heads where they live. I had a college degree. I was in a beautiful home originally and upgraded to an even larger one. I was remarrying and planning for a new life for my sons. I didn't do drugs, drink once in a while, and never arrested, went to church, and had buried a wife and kid. It didn't matter. The family courts in the country in which we lived treated me as the same as all the stories I've listened to and so many of your stories. Of course, because he's the man, and he's the big giant villain. And your selfish asshole parents didn't care about what you went through and what they're going to put you through. This guy's an upstanding citizen. But listen to all this. I told my mother, who loved being the caretaker for my sons, that I appreciate everything she and my father did for me and that I could never repay them. But I was ready to move on with my life and let this new woman take over the rearing role of my boys. Sounds like your mom can't handle an empty nest, so she's got to, She basically lost it and somehow convinced my father to take drastic action and sue me because she felt that she was the only one who was competent to raise my boys. They hired the most vicious family attorney, female as a matter of fact, that I've ever met, and over the next 2 years, I was in and out of family court defending my rights to keep my kids. I will bullet point the highlights. Listen to this shit. Number 1, I was forced to give my kids up 2 evenings a week and first weekend of every month plus a month in the summer and time at all major holidays. 2, I was forced into family counseling that I paid for. Thankfully, that didn't last long. Forced into family counseling for what? 3, after a year fighting them, they got my in-laws, whom I thought I had a good relationship with, to also join in, and the in-laws also awarded almost as much time in addition to my parents. So he had to give a bunch of the time to his parents for suing him, and a bunch of time to his late wife's family too, and they're coming after him too. 4, I was absolutely drained financially. I wiped out my 401k, sold most of my possessions, and I was on the verge of having to sell our home. In addition to this, Mary wiped out her 401k and helped me made a ton of sacrifices so he could try and fight in the court. This is what I'm talking about when he said I think he had the exception, not the rule, in regards to the single mom, 4 kids, nurse, and all that. Not only did he wipe out his 401k, but also hers in helping this guy. That says a lot. And she helped him grieve. And she stood by him through all this shit. Next one. That pit bull of a lawyer of my parents said the most crazy lies about Mary in documents in an attempt to smear her. The judge not only allowed this, but Mary was never allowed to appear in court to defend herself. So she was enduring all that too. Next one. I finally suffered a panic attack and had a real battle with depression, which I did overcome with the help of some quality counseling, head medication, supportive wife, and finally faith. I pray that every guy finds help when they are being crushed by life. I had some very dark thoughts, including swallowing the business and the pistol, but got through it, and thankfully I did. Oh my, dude, you are so freaking strong and tough. I have so much respect for you. Your parents are fucking pieces of garbage, and I'm going to say it. I know that you, as a religious man, you want to forgive and all that. We'll get to that, but no. No. Next one. There is still to this day a roughly 30-page court document which exists spelling out the litany of provisions for this agreement. And last one, the only winners in family court are the lawyers. Of course, the lawyers always are the ones that make out. Why do you think lawyers create so much drama and everything? Because they know that, hey, billable hours, They'll just keep running the meter as long as possible. I know a lot of lawyers. I had a girlfriend for years that was a lawyer. I know how this shit fucking works. And let me tell you, a lot of lawyers I met aren't that smart. Let me tell you, they may have the book smarts, test-taking abilities to pass the LSATs and the test, but common sense-wise, and then other ones are just these vicious assholes who really think they're in the right. Greedy little fuckers. I'm not saying they're all villains, but I've known a few. Several years ago, after I got my head on straight, I took a new job and we moved 1,100 miles away from where we were living with the lawsuit. My parents followed and bought a house in the same town where I lived so they could enjoy their special time with my sons. My father is extremely wealthy and obviously not afraid to fight very dirty, so there wasn't much I could do besides just ride this out, as I wasn't going to further drain our finances in a losing battle. In other words, at the end of the day, they beat you with money. That's it. At the end of the day, because they knew darn well you only had so much money and they would win. Your parents are fucking pieces of garbage. Mary and I have had a number of fights over this, but I told her that all we will do is pour money down the drain with very little to show results. Yeah, they try to bankrupt you. Yeah, you can't go bankrupt. You got to take care of each other and your boys. Today we are about done with living under the lawsuit. My older son is now 18, attending college to become a pilot, and he is very burned out with this whole sordid affair. Yeah, you know how much this affected the kids? The younger one is 16, and my parents never pushed for him to spend time with them like they did with the older boy. I've actually had to reel both the boys back in a few times, as they really resent my parents, their grandparents, for what they did to us in the court system. Let them resent them. Look what they did to you. Look what they did to their stepmother, who stood by you through this shit and helped finance the court battles, and whose name was dragged through the mud and still stood by you. I have great respect for her. Really. And look what they did to the honor of their mother, who passed away when they were little boys, and I remember her. They have a right to be resentful towards their grandparents. Fuck them. Fuck your parents and their grandparents. They don't know everything that was said in court, but we have a copy of the court papers, and they're welcome to read if they ever ask about it. I think your boys will. Mary legally adopted the boys soon after we moved out here, South Dakota. I want to hit just a few more points for you and your subscribers. He says, I readily admit my life in marriage is a statistical anomaly. I have a great relationship with my stepkids. We have combined 5 boys and a girl. I disciplined all of them many times. My stepsons all regularly come to me a lot, and now they're in their 20s for advice and guidance. That is great that you're able to discipline them from day one, and they come to you. A lot of times guys get involved with single MOMs, they marry them, but they can't discipline the kids. Oh, no. No, see, that's different. So again, another thing proven, you found one of the good ones. It's rare. The oldest boy frequently tells me I'm more of his dad than his own father. Their dad cheated on Mary and left them. Aha! They are a great young men, and it's been tough at times, but a real honor and joy to have had a hand in raising them and seeing the men they are turning into today. Well, you may have been blue-pilled back in the day, and you made mistakes, as anybody could do, but I think your strength of enduring all this, and they obviously heard about what you went through, showed them an example of what a man is. And I tip my hat to you, man. He says, my kids have loved their step-siblings and vice versa since day one, and it's actually just gotten better over the years. That's wonderful. That's quite a house of 6 kids, and you and the wife. Man, I grew up in a house with mom and dad, me and my sister. It was a quiet house. My boys voluntarily started calling Mary Mom after we got married. We never forced this or ever suggested it to them. Mary keeps the spirit of their deceased mother alive all the time. She even started the tradition very early on of a separate mommy tree at Christmas, where the boys have a small tree that is decorated with all the ornaments of their late mother. Jenna really loved Christmas. That is great. Again, his now wife and stepmother, his boys, is not threatened by the memory of their mother and celebrates it. That's awesome. I wish all stepmoms could be this way. I wish all, you know what I mean? Also, Mary pushed me to seek forgiveness and some reconciliation with my parents when I was consumed with hate and loathing. I don't want you to walk around with hate and loathing, but I would have nothing to do with your parents. Nothing. I'll get more to that later. You can't hate forever. It does turn into a sickness and it is not healthy. I don't fully trust my parents, but I've worked to have a better relationship with them, but it's still strained quite a bit. Mary never left me even though she was dragged through the mud. We fought many times, and we both agreed we are on our second and final marriage. But we've stayed true to each other, and we'll be celebrating our 12-year anniversary this summer. Well, congratulations. And I can see how there's a lot of fighting and carryings on. Because, number one, no marriage is perfect, and there's going to be ups and downs, as any relationship. And people are going to have disagreements, and shit's going to come up. And people have disagreements on how they handle things. But you both said the good far outweighs the bad, and we're going to together get through this shit and support each other. And she did that for you, and that's great. We need more of that. Marriage is a ton of work. Mary told me very early on in our relationship she knows she can be a challenge. But she's loyal above anything else. Hey, I'll take a challenge, but loyal any day. So far, she has kept that promise to me. She's kept herself in amazing shape, looks great for her age, and even became a nurse practitioner 3 years ago. Oh, I can imagine the jokes coming in the comments. Well, I'm glad she does what she does well. I'm glad she's in great shape. I'm glad she's been supportive. I'm glad that she's moving up in the world. And I pray to the Lord that she does not turn into a stereotype. I think she's an exception. I've told my boys, the stepsons, and the biological sons are my boys, about your content and tell them as much as I love them and their mother, do not date single moms and to focus on their purpose. Wonderful, because they're not all going to try to be your wife. And I pray to the Lord that your wife behind the scenes is not liking these stories, but I think we're okay. Yes, welcome, sons. Welcome to the channel. The family court system is evil. I have nothing at all but venom in me for that judge. I have no issues detesting this liberal female judge, and I wish nothing good for her. I will just leave it for that for now. Specifically to the father, Job, I disagree with SSM. Job, you have to find forgiveness, and true forgiveness is immensely difficult. I found forgiveness for my parents. Make no mistake, our relationship is permanently changed and nothing like it was in my youth. I did more than that for a while, and the level of betrayal I felt is hard to describe. Job, you cannot live with the anger. It is a cancer. You don't have to be close to your daughter, and I certainly would not be. But you have to take care of yourself and still have purpose. I think he's referring to Job from the Bible, but also a guy that I think I called Job in a story. I believe. He says, forgive them for they know not what they do. Just remember that doesn't mean you have to forget and pretend the world is rosy. He's talking to the guy in that video. Your daughter made her bed as an adult male, and as adult male, numerous evil and deceitful decisions without a second thought. She made that bed and has earned the distant relationship she's insisted upon her with her actions. Your ex-wife is complete scum, and I hope you never have to deal with her again. I'm truly sorry you've gone through this, and I'll be praying for your healing and for easier days ahead of you. That's a private message to the guy in the video, I don't know what video that was. SSM, I apologize if this rambled at all and seemed disjointed. I was trying to hit the real high points with the 15 years of drama. 15 years of drama. I hope no one has ever had to go through what I did, but people die every day, and statistically, while it's the men who normally die first, it's not always the case, and men need to know the real risks they can face after dealing with a trauma or loss. My deepest thanks for all you do, and the very best to your continued success. Yours truly, I'm not going to say his name. Sir, I tip my hat to you. You are a man of iron. You're a hero. Everything you went through, one thing after another, and I think your faith really helped you get through it, and I thank the Lord that He helped you through it, and that you met a gal whose actions, remember it's about actions, her actions just showed, that she had your back from the get-go, and lost a ton of money helping defend the situation with the grandparents' lawsuit, and let you raise her boys and daughter and lay down the law, and been supportive, and all these other positive things that she's demonstrated through her actions. I think you got the exception, not the rule. And all jokes aside about being the nurse, and you got a great thing going. And I'm very you earned that and deserve that. But what you went through, holy crap! I'm sorry about that, but you are strong, and you are an inspiration to all the guys out there going through tough times. And I guarantee you, there are guys watching this that are going through tough times right now, and your story probably gave them enough strength to get through another day, and that's great. But as to your parents, I absolutely agree. You can't go around with hate in your heart because it just poisons you and ruins you. But If it were me, I'd have nothing to do with the parents. You had to deal with that crap with the lawsuits until they're legal adults. At that point, I'd have nothing to do with them. What they did to you after everything else you went through here, that is horrible. And they knew it. They absolutely knew it, did for selfish reasons. And so a lot of people are going to speculate that there were maybe things behind the scenes, or they thought you were unstable, and yeah, you were going through hard times, but you did what you had to do. But regardless, no, that is terrible. And dragging her name through the mud and your name through the mud and almost bankrupting you, no, I would have nothing to do with them. You can forgive them, but you got to forget and have anything to do with them. And the only way I'd even remotely, I would say, okay, Mom and Dad, after everything you put me through, you want a relationship with me? Here's the deal. All the money I spent defending and losing that battle, you're going to pay me back with interest. Whatever is the interest for every year, real interest. Interest based on inflation, not fake inflation numbers that the government puts out every month. I'm talking real inflation. You're going to pay me that money plus interest based on inflation for every year for that money that I paid back then defending my family. Then you're going to triple it for all the emotional shit I went through. And then maybe we can talk about having things. And no, it ain't all about the money, guys. It's that they need to have punitive damages for what they did to him and his family and his wife, who's been good to him. Then maybe we can talk about it. But even then. But then on the other hand, be like, you know what? I can't be bought. But they were selfish a-holes, and I'm sorry you went through that. But anyhow, I'm glad your life is going well. You deserve to have nothing but happiness now for the rest of your life. And I hope that for you and your family. So, bro, great story sending this in. I appreciate this subject, because this is a subject a lot of people don't know about, the grandparents' right thing and how it can impact you. And you said yourself your mom was living with you for like 18 months, so to help out. And that was very nice. She went to help out, but clearly got so attached to the boys, and she lived there longer than that 6 months thing. So that's a good thing. We all learned something today about that. I'm now wiser today knowing about how that whole thing works. So, all right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Give this guy a shout out. Give him some praise for everything he's dealt with. Be kind with the nurse jokes. This guy's been through enough, but regardless. And give this guy a shout out. He really deserves this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.